Again, we're learning for the Refuah Shalema and the return of our great Chaver, Yosef ben Sarah Halevi. And we're beginning. We are holding on 109b2 at the words V'loi Yivchatu Loi Me'arba, and we should not give him less than 4 cups of wine. So, as Charlie went ahead and just mentioned, the following Gemara, and the following Gemara is going to go on for a few dafim. Essentially, it's going to go on for about 2.5 dafim, if I got it correct, is a discussion about sorcery, magic, demons, and the idea of zugais, pairs, that things in even numbers is not good. So, rational people, like the people that I'm dealing with here, college-educated, Harvard-educated people, this Gemara is not the simplest Gemara to understand.
It's okay. The Rambam agrees with us.
Exactly. I'm about to read to you from the Rambam. Hilchas Avodah Zarah, Avodas Kechavim, the 11th parak. Okay, the 11th parak, Sif, if you want to look at it inside, 17. He brings about Hamechashev Chayiv Skilo. A sorcerer is Chayiv to be stoned. And he goes on. Then he says, and these are very powerful words, Udevarim ha'elu, and these things that we're talking about, sorcery, demons, all the stuff, Kulan divrei sheker v'chazav. They are all words of lies and fakery. Heim vehem shato behem oivdei kechavim hakadmoinim. This is who the idol worshippers of before, in the earlier years of idol worshipship, they got fueled. The Goyei Harotzais in the nations of the world, Kedei sheniyahagnu achreim, so that they should be followed afterwards. And listen to these words: the ain royally Yisrael, such a thing is not royal, shouldn't even be coming to a Jew. Shehem chachamim mechachamim, who are the wisest of the wise, lahamshich behabolim elu, to even think in these nonsensical things, in these empty things. V'loy lahaloitz alev sheyesh ka'eles behen, and it shouldn't even come onto your heart that there's even anything to this. Shenema, like it says, ki loy nochash v'Yaakov v'loy kesem v'Yisrael. And he says, Kol hamaymen b'davarim elu, whoever believes in these stuff, who kiyaitzav will like them, umechashev b'libay, who thinks in his heart, shehein emes v'dava chachma, that these are truths and words of wisdom, ella abel haTorah asran, except that the Torah asks it, but there's truth to them. Einoi ella min hasechelim umechasrei hadas, are only from those who have weakness in thought. Umechlal, I don't want Charlie, your wife is nowhere around, right?
No.
Good, because the next words on the Rambam are ubechlal hanoshim v'aketanim, and specifically women and children, she'ein daton shalema, because their minds are not complete. Okay? Aval baalei hachachma, but men of wisdom, v'tamimei hadas, and perfection of knowledge, yoidu b'riyus v'iroi shakol elu devarim she'asa ha'Torah eina divrei hachachma, they're not words of wisdom. Elotoyu v'hebel, they're nothing and wasteful. Shenim shchlev chesrei hadas v'tol kodarkem is beglolos. Umebnei zeh omra Torah shazinin al kol elu havolim tomim tiyu im Hashem alekecha, perfectly be with Hashem your God, and don't search out this nonsense. Great. Having now said this, Charlie, the reality is the Ramban, the Nachmanides, argues terribly on this and says if the Torah brings it down, There has to be to value to it. There is a great machlokes rishonim on this. By far, believe it or not, most rishonim disagree with the Rambam. And they say, no, there is some reality to the Sitra Achad, to these dark forces, etc. The art scroll, which we're holding in our hands, goes along and it translates based on the idea that they do exist. So now this is what I want to say. I learned these Gemaras. Anytime the Gemara talks about shadim, demons, I switch the word in my mind to viruses. That's what I do. In my mind, I switch it to virus. Because we know today that, in fact, that we are surrounded by various viruses. We're surrounded by atoms and molecules. We're made up of atoms and molecules. That what looks solid, we know nothing actually is solid, but is just a gathering of atoms and molecules and electrons, etc., so that to the human eye it looks like solid, but under a microscope you can see that it's put together. So we have a somewhat better understanding of something that Chazal here was maybe trying to tell us, that we live in a world within a world. We live in a world in a physical world that we think we understand, but we clearly know that we're living in a world of Olam HaShekhet. The world doesn't even see with the way we see. Like we know what we see with our eyes is not instantaneous, but there's a time lapse. It might be a half a second, but there's a time lapse. The sounds that we hear are not simultaneously when it's spoken. There's a lapse. And as we know, the world we're living in, when we look at our hands, we see a hand. But under the microscope, we know full well that it's not actually a hand. It's the molecules, atoms, and all that are floating around. If we look at it that way, we begin to understand it somewhat. Now, we're also going to be talking right off the bat about zugos, because how many cups of wine did Chazal say we should drink? 4 cups of wine, i.e. an even number. The problem that they had with even numbers is dualism. Dualism as opposed to monotheism, otherwise known as the problem of the Catholics. This is the reason why, by and large, according to most Rishonim, Rabbeinu Tam in a few places in Shas that talks about shutfis, partnership between the Creator and something else. Dualism is an extraordinarily dangerous idea. Rabbi Sachs, Zechayna Levrach, in his great book, The Great Partnership, which I have a few people on this year have already bought, but if you haven't bought it, I advise you to buy the book, The Great Partnership, Science, Religion, and the Search for Meaning, in which was Rabbi Sachs's response to Richard Dawkins' book. Richard Dawkins, the great atheist from England, who wrote a book that there's probably no God, to which Rabbi Sachs wrote in response, The Great Partnership, Religion, Science, and the Search for Meaning. It is not specifically a Jewish book. It was written a book essentially for everyone, but of course it is a Jewish book. The sources are entirely Jewish, and if you read it, it reads like a novel. All right, you'll thank me afterwards that you got it. You can get it on Amazon. It's about $15 paperback. Don't spend money on the hardcover. And it's kedai to buy it, and you'll thank me afterwards. It will be a book that will go on your Sfarim shelf. It really will. And he in there spends time talking exactly about dualism and what that was and the effects of it and how we're still dealing with it today. And I will give you the example in our world. As you know, when we daven, we say an ani mamim, that we're only supposed to daven to Hashem and no one else. Which becomes that when you go to a tzaddik's grave, you don't daven to the tzaddik. You daven to Hashem. It is the reason why the tefillah of about Machnise Rachamim, Machnise Rachamecha, when we do Salichas, which is the tefillah for the Malachim to take our tefillahs above, is very problematic. Even the Shalom Aleichem that we say every Friday night is problematic. Because who we saying? Shalom Aleichem Malachei Ashares Malachei Elyon. And then in the third stanza we say, Baruchoni L'Shalom. Bless us, Malachei Shalom. The angels cannot bless us. So of course we're really telling them to go, that the one who sent you, go to the one who sent you and tell us, and tell him to bless us. But even that's no good, because we're supposed to tell the Rabbi Shalom directly, Hashem directly. There are people that skip out that stanza, that third stanza. I say it because my father says and my grandfather say it, but there are people that skip out that third stanza because it is problematic. Because Chazal clearly had problems with the even number because it represents dualism. 2, as opposed to the unity. And so with that understanding of the Gemara, we are going to do the Gemara. You'll notice what I just said here. We're going to do the Gemara. We're going to fly through this daf. Tomorrow we're going to fly through that daf. On Shabbos, half the daf it's going to fly through. Because if you're going to start asking questions, your questions are going to be better than your answers. And given that we are all over here,
we holding the Yitzhak.
109, we're giving an akdama to 109b2 to Shendim, to this. What does it mean? Peers, Zugais. What does it mean? Sorcery. All that. We went through the Rambam, where the Rambam says this is all nonsense. The Rambam writes again in Halachas Avodas Kechov in Perik Yud Aleph, Sif Tezayim Devarim Ha'elu. These things, Kulam Sheker B'Tezol, is all false and nonsense. But the Ramban disagrees. Most of the Rishonim disagree, and ArtScroll clearly explains it not like the Rambam. But in the purposes, once again, of the peers, of even numbers, the best way to look at it is Chazal was trying to keep us away from any thoughts that can bring us to dualism, to think Catholicism, to think that there is a creator and something else. And like I said, Shalom Aleichem is a very controversial tefillah. We all say Shalom Aleichem Malachei HaShares, Malachei Elyon. What in the world are we doing talking to Malachim? We don't do that. We talk directly to the one and only. Machnise Rachmin, Machnise Rachamecha is again a problem, because we shouldn't be talking to the Malachim, we should be talking direct. But that's what Chazal wanted to keep us away, because dualism is the greatest danger against monotheism, and it is. And as like I said, I would advise everybody to look in Rabbi Sachs's Zechain L'Bracha book, The Great Partnership, in which he talks about this. Provided he has a half a chapter just on this topic. And like I said to anybody who has not read the book, who has not gotten the book, you'll thank me after you get it. It is Rabbi Sachs understood Yiddishkeit, understood Judaism, and had a way of putting it down. Even when he was writing a book that was for the whole world, not just for us. So once again, we're about to start on this Gemara. We're about to start on this Gemara 109b2. And as I was saying before my father got here, we are going to do this Gemara. We're not taking any questions on this Gemara, because the questions will be better than any answers I could give. In other words, it's above our pay grade. We simply do it. Here we go. 109b2, right-hand corner. And you should not give the ani anything less than 4 cups of wine. We've got a problem. 4 is even. How could the rabbis, how could the rabbanon be misakin something that brings us to danger? 109b3. But Tanya, we learned lo yochel odom trey A person should not eat anything in twos, in even numbers. Lo yishtatray, and he should not drink in pairs. V'lo yikanach tray, and he shouldn't even wipe himself after he goes to the bathroom with two toilet papers or with two stones. He should use three or one. V'lo yasid sarchav tray, nor should he satisfy his needs. In other words, have sexual relations with his wife in pairs. Nothing in pairs. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Kra, the pasuk says regarding the first night of Pesach, Lel Shimurim Hu. It will be a night of anticipation of watching. Lel Shimurim Hu Ba Min Hamazikim. It's a night which is guarded from that time on against harmful spirits, Mazikim. So switch the word Mazikin in your mind to viruses. You don't catch corona on the night of Pesach. Now, before my father jumps down our throat, my father's in the but I once got a car stolen on Lel Shimurim, and boy, do I remember my father came out in the morning and the car was gone, and my father was talking to the rabbi. He said, "What's going on? It's Lel Shimurim." So the answer is, if don't have to give everything away. Anyway, so the bottom line is that Lel Shimurim is the idea of that you're spiritually guarded against harmful things. Okay? And that's all I'm going to say on it. Rava Amar, so therefore you can have 4 kaises. We're not going to worry about it. Rava Amar, kaisha bracha, a kais of a bracha, mitzaref l'toiva ve'im mitzaref l'ra. The kais of a bracha, the third cup, which is birchas hamazon, the cup that we use, that we drink right after we bench, after the meal, combines with the other 2 cups, the first and the second cups, to create for good. They're not combines for evil. It doesn't combine together with the 4th cup to create evil. 109b4. Ravina Omar, Arba Kaise Takinu Rabbanon Derech Cherus. Though the Rabbanon enacted 4 cups, in other words, for Cherus, for the 4 expressions of freedom, Lakachti, Gaalti, Lakachti, Tetesi, and all that, nonetheless. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate. Thank you. Nonetheless, Kol Chad V'Chad, each cup by itself, go to the top of Kuf Yud, 110A1, Mitzvah Nafshiu. Each one is a mitzvah by itself. Take a look at the first Rashbam, Mitzvah Ba'atbe Nafshehu, Ve'ein mitztarfen zeh lo zeh, and they do not combine one with the other. That means, even though the Rabbanon were misaking 4 cups of wine, the Arba Kaisis, in fact, there are 4 distinct mitzvahs, the Rabbanon, of drinking the cups of wine. So if a person only has enough for 1 cup of wine for whatever reason, he pours that 1 cup of wine, he's mekayem and mitzvah of drinking one of the cups of the Arba Kaisis, according to this Gemara. According to this Gemara, the Arba Kaisis, according to this Rava, is, what do you call it, is each one is a mitzvah miyuchedes, each one is mutually exclusive from the other, so each one is a mitzvah by itself. The Brisa continues, lo yasid tzarech trey. He should not satisfy his sexual needs in pairs. Break the Gemara, mai nimlachu. Why, it should be just like somebody who eats a food, walks away, and then he reconsiders and he comes back to eat a second food. No. Same thing with Tashmish Hamita. Same thing. You finish, you go to the bathroom, you dry around, you come around for seconds. It's not a second. This is what the Brisa means. Lo yachul trei v'yasid sarchav. One should not eat pears and then right after eating, jump into bed. And he shouldn't drink peers and then satisfy his needs. Because perhaps he'll become physically weakened and from having had relations, and will be harmed by the peers that he ate or drank. Tanu Rabbanon. Somebody who drinks in peers has his blood on his own hand, on his own head. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amasai, when do I say this? Bizman shaloi ro pnei ashuk. When he does not, between one cup and the other, he doesn't see the face of the market. In other words, he doesn't go up and go outside for a minute and take a break. Even if he turns his face to the market, in other words, he picks some stuff up and takes a small break, no problems. I once saw Chananya bar Bibi, that after each cup of each cup that he drank, he would go outside and take a look at the marketplace. So that's it. In other words, if you're drinking, drink a cup, step out onto power line, look down power line towards the Grove, come back in, and okay, you can drink some more. Or drink 3 at a shot. But don't drink 2 at a shot. And it wasn't said that peers are only dangerous with regard of going out on the road. But in your house, it's not a problem. Oh, okay, you're okay. You can drink however you want to drink. And going to sleep is like going on the road. So don't drink 2 cups of wine before going to bed. Either 1 cup of wine or 3 cups of wine before going to bed. And going out to the bathroom is like going out on the road. So stop right there. Obviously, there's 2 halachas here that are interesting. This is when there were outhouses. So you had to leave your house to go to the bathroom. Going to the bathroom used to be a very big thing. You had to, there was no rushing to the bathroom. You had to be prepared. Number 2, our bathrooms, in fact, do not have the din of a Beis HaKisei. Because we flush down and it goes away, it's like the Beis HaKisei of the Parsiim. We're going to bang into this later in Shas, like the bathrooms of the Persians. The Persians had a primitive plumbing system that things will flush down the toilet, as the Gemara says. Truth is that you're allowed to go in with talis and tefillin into the bathroom today, because the bathrooms that they're talking about were outhouses, not our bathrooms. Of course, we don't have a cupboard, but the reality is theoretically you would be able to. Goes further the Gemara. And if one stays in the house, drinking at peers or eating at peers is not harmful. Rava would count the beams of his house to make sure he would not drink in peers. He drank 1 cup, he looked at 1 beam. He drank 2 cups, he looked at 2 beams. Drank 3 cups, he kept the track of his beams on his feet to make sure that he always ended up with an odd number of drinks. Abaye, when he would drink 1 cup, his mother would hold 2 cups for him in her hands. In fact, it wasn't his mother, it was his nurse. Abaye's mother died early. Abaye never knew his mother. He was brought up by a nurse, and he always called his
childbirth.
She died in childbirth. Thank you, Daddy. And he was brought up by the nurse, and he called his nurse Ime all his life. All through Shas, he calls his nurse Ime, and she is one of the doctors in Shas. Many times in Shas, you will find that the mother of Abaye is giving medical advice, as we'll see along the way. Goes further. When Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak would drink 2 cups, his servant would hold 1 cup for him, so that to make sure that he had 3 cups. When Rav Nachman would drink 1 cup, The servant would hold 2 cups for him in his 2 hands. So, what do you see? That in the house we do concern ourselves with drinking in pairs. Adam Chashiv Shani. An Adam Chashiv, an important person, is different. So, for an example, the former president of Boca Jewish Center is a very important person. So he cannot go ahead and drink in pairs even in his house. He's got to have a 3rd cup always available. Charlie, now you know.
Okay, I got it all set up.
You got it all set up. Ama Ula. Asara Kaisis Ein Behem Zugas. 10 cups already, there's no concern. Only 2, 4, 6, 8 has concerns. Once you get to double digits, there's no more concerns.
2 items.
No,
Okay.
in the middle of a thing.
Ula Latamei, Ula follows his opinion. The Amma Ula of Amile Masnisantani. Ula says another thing, it's a straight out Baraisa. Asara Kaisis Tiknu Chacham Bebeis Ovel. The sages instituted 10 cups of wine to be drunk in a mourner's home. That means you keep going because 3 cups like this, it gets the mourners off their mind, off their problems, it gets them moving in the right direction psychologically. But if you say that there's a concern of peers with 10 cups, would Chazal come along and be misakin something by an ovel, that an ovel's house would drink 10 cups of wine in a place that would bring him to danger? So that must mean 10 is not a problem. But 8 cups, yesh mahem zugais, we worry about peers. Rav Chizda v'Rabba bar Rav Huna de Amr Tavayu, that say together, Shalom, meaning the Bichas Kahanim. Bichas Kahanim, if you look at number 14, number 15 in the art scroll, just look at number 15 in the art scroll. Look at the last bracha. Yisa Hashem Panav Elecha v'Yosem Lecha Shalom. Count how many words that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Shalom l'toiva mitzdareh, meaning the 7th cup corresponding to the 7th word of Yisa Hashem Panav Elecha v'Yosem Lecha Shalom, right, combines with the first 6 cups to make it an odd number of 7, and Bilara alignment mitzdareh, but does not go forward to combine with the 8th cup to make it an even cup.
Because Shalom is the name of Hashem.
And Shalom is the name of Hashem, correct. We go in with Shalom and we go out with Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, and we say Shalom to say goodbye. What is remarkable about the name peace is that Klal Yisrael, for all intents and purposes, except for the first 30 years of Shlomo HaMelech, except for the first 30 of the 40 years of Shlomo HaMelech, since then, Klal Yisrael has never actually been in peace. From the last 10 years of Shlomo Kehelet ben David Melech for Yerushalayim, when he was only king in Yerushalayim, he already had lost control of most of the country. And then afterwards, the country was split into Malchus Yehuda, Malchus Yisrael. And from that moment on, and it's now going on over 3,000 years, us Jews have never truly been in Shalom. And as you know, when you don't have something, you appreciate it. So we understand the great gift of Shalom. May it come speedily in our days with the coming of Mashiach. Okay, so Shita Yesh Behem Mishum Zugais. 6 cups, it's an even number. I got to worry about peers. So it says, Rabba v'Rav Yosef, Yomi Tabayu, V'chuneka, L'toiva mitzaref, L'roloi mitzaref. Go to the second line, back to 15. Yoeh Hashem, Panav Elecha, V'chuneka, and he will be gracious with you. That's 5 words. So the 5th cup corresponds to V'chuneka, which will connect to the first 4 cups for good, to make it an odd number, and doesn't connect to the 6th cup to make it an even number. Says the Gemara, Aval Arba Yesh Ben Mishum Zugais. 4 cups, we got to worry about pairs. Abaye Ba Rabba Damer Tabayu. No. The Yishmerecho L'Toiba Mitzdaref L'Rola Mitzdaref. Back to 15. Number 15. Yivarecha Hashem v'Yishmerecha. So the third cup corresponds to the third word of the first part of Birchas Kahanim v'Yishmerecha, and I will watch, safeguard you. You will be safeguarded because the third cup will connect with the first 2 to make it an odd number, and it will not connect to the 4th cup to make it an even number. Ba'az the Rava l'tamei, and Rava goes with his own opinion. The Rava apkinu l'Rabbana ba'arba kaisis, because Rava would often send off Rabbana after giving them 4 cups of wine. This is not talking about Pesach. This is talking about any day that they came to visit. He would give them 4 cups of wine. Rabba Bar Levi, even though Rabba Bar Levi was once harmed when he left Rabba's house after drinking 4 cups, Rabba was not concerned that it was because of the 4 cups that he gave him that he was harmed. The Omar, because he said, that's because when I was speaking publicly, he embarrassed me by challenging me decisively during the public shiur, during the public lecture. And this is the rule. If the Rav is talking and he says something that clearly you know is wrong, that you're not, that he don't answer him up publicly. Go to the side and ask him. Don't go ahead and let him have it with 2 barrels publicly. And if you do, don't be surprised if the mazikim come calling. Amar Rav Yosef. Okay, now, Rav Yosef said this. Amar Rav Yosef. Amar li Yosef Sheda. Yosef, the demon, told me. Okay? Ashmedai. Malka Deshade. Ashmedai, the king of the demons. He's appointed over all peers. He causes all the trouble with all the peers. Now, a king is not characterized as somebody who does negligence, as an injurer, and therefore it can be presumed that he's not one to cause people harm due to peers. 110a3. Ikadi Amri law lahai gisa. There are those who explain the statement of Yosef the demon this way. Adarabba, just the opposite. Malka raschonahu maida avidavi, a king who's temperamental does what he pleases. Shamelach pirates geder, because a melech has eminent domain. Lasa is derech, to break fences, to make a pathway. Then moichin biyada, and you can't do anything about it, which of course includes our governors and presidents who have the right of eminent domain, right? They may have to, today you have to pay people the market rate, right, which is determined by the government, not the market, but they have the right to tell you, oops, your house is in the way. So you can imagine if they decide to expand power line and add an extra row on either side, Daddy, there goes Pradera. There you go. So
I'll move in the grove. That's
it. You'll move in. That's it. Exactly. But Daddy, then you'll have to take up golfing. Just got to tell you. Okay. So Amar Rav Papa, Amarli Yosef Sheda. Yosef the demon told me, Basrei Katlinon. When you drink 2 cups, we are able to kill him. Ba'arba Aloy Katlinon. 4 cups we're not allowed to kill. Ba'arba Mazikim, but we can inflict injury. Betray Bain B'Shaygig Bain B'Mezid. When one drinks 2 cups, we're empowered to kill, whether he drinks unintentionally, he didn't realize, he forgot that he was drinking 2 cups, or he does it deliberately. We can injure a person with 4 cups if he does it intentionally, but not if he drinks b'shogeg. And if one forgot that he drank pears when he went out, what's the remedy? Lindkut v'kipo di de zikpo di de the mine bidod simole. He should hold his thumb of his right hand in his left hand like this. Okay, sort of like this. The zikpa the smala bidei the maya and the thumb of his left hand in his right hand. Try doing it like this and like this. I don't ask how to turn his hand into a pretzel. V'neima hachi. You and I are 3. And if he hears a voice in his ear that says, you and I are 4, he should say, you and I are 5. That you and I are 6. You and I are 7. There was once an incident that went until a person reached the number 101. The conversation between him and the demon went back and forth. At this point, the demon burst. Now you know where the Svardim have the number 101. You know, we give tzedakah in terms of to Ashkenazim in terms of 18, 36, 54 chai, or maybe 26 Shem Havaya, and the Svardim give with the Shem Havaya 26, and are very big. They don't give $100. They always give $101, and this is not where it comes from, because 101 is safe, 100 is a zug. It's not safe. This is from this Gemara. Svardim are very big in 101. Amar Ameimar says Ameimar. Amrli Rishintihu the Noshim Kashfoniyos. The madam of, I'm reading the English here. The madam of the sorceress told me. Rishanta, this is where the word Rishanta comes from. Rishtanihu, the Rishanta, the mother of all sorcerers, told me. Hi man, the Bobgebe Benoshim Kashfoniyos, one who encounters sorcerers. Nemos Nahachish say Chori Chamime de Kula Besayo Tubchayu Noshe de Charshaya. Hot excitement. I'm reading this straight out of the English. So everybody look at the English so I don't got to do too much explaining over here. Hot excitement in torn baskets in your mouth, woman of sorcery. Korach Karchaichi, may your hair be ripped out to expose your baldness. Parach Tarchaichi, may your breadcrumbs fly away. We are now on Amud Beis 110b1, 110b Yud Kuf Yud Amud Beis. Ibaidut Tavlinichai, may your spices scatter. Parcha Zika Lemoirika Chadato Denak Tisu Noshim Kashvanias. May the wind blow away the fresh saffron that you're holding in your hands, sorcerers. As long as I have my grace, that Shemayim, they're looking on me favorably. Your grace and your grace should not come between you. Now that I have come between you, my grace and your grace towards me have cooled. Don't ask me what this all means. We're moving on.
And he's telling you that all the utensils that he needs to do sorcery should fly away.
Except that the Rambam says, "Devarim al elu kula divrei sheker b'chazal." And listen to this. He says, whoever believes in the kol ma'amidim v'devarim ha'elu ki yotzeh behem v'chashem b'liboy she'ein emes v'davar chachma is a disaster. So of course, I'm only mentioning this Rambam because everybody on this in this year is college educated. And so even though the most Rishonim agree that there is mamoshes to this, the Rambam clearly writes, as clear, he slams it home, that this is Avodah Zarah. And this is a disaster. He writes it there in the Rambam himself, in the Moreh Nevuchim. He's everywhere. In this Pirush Mishnayos al Rambam, he lets you have it with two barrels about this. But, so I am not going to explain, because the truth is, I don't understand. I'm being honest, I don't understand. I don't understand. I, again, fully admit that we now know that there is an entire world, that, like I said before, there's an entire world we know. We think we live in a physical world, yet we know that we actually live in a world of atoms and molecules and electrons and protons. And if you put ourselves anything solid underneath the microscope, you'll see that it's not even solid. Nothing is solid. We live in an olam hasheker. Everything we see is not real. For those who know the movies, we live in the Matrix. Essentially, it's all a computer game. So, or the way they say it in the East, it's a world within a world, right? It's a dream within a dream, and that is true. Okay, this is the Olam HaSheket. Nonetheless, it's also the Olam HaMaisa, the world that you can do things. So this world has the most important thing. It's the world that we can learn these Gemaras. When we learn these Gemaras, we have to recognize our right. That we have to recognize our limitations, our physical limitations, to understand the esoteric things that our great sages that came before us were hiding in plain sight. And for those who do know, they don't discuss it. And that's the reality. Okay? So let's just keep going. Okay? B'marova loy akbed azuge. In the West, in Eretz Yisrael, they didn't worry about peers at all. Now that we've been talking about it. Rab Dami ben Adoy kopir afilu arushma de chavisa. But Rab Dimi ben Adoy was particularly even in the marks on a barrel. If he was marking up a barrel, he would always make sure he would put 3 marks. Haya uvdu poker chavisa. There was once an incident when someone was not careful about marking up a barrel, and he marked it with 2 lines, and the barrel burst. Klola de milsa. Now we're coming to the end here. Called the pocket kapkid bahade. Whoever is particular regarding zugais, the demons are particular with him, and they'll harm him. The loy pocket, loy pakde bahade, one who is not particular over peers, the demons are not particular with him. One should be mindful, if you could remember not to do things in peers. Again, before we go further, essentially what this is an argument against dualism. Anything that might bring your mind from breaking away from the idea, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, the unity, the monotheism. Anything that breaks away, and unfortunately, whether we realize it or not, we are living in a world with great duality. We're, especially today, people put their faith. They, even if they believe or don't believe, they put their faith in politics. Democrat, Republicans have become religions unto themselves. I believe, by the way, this week in The Atlantic, somebody actually wrote an article exactly on this, that today, with the fall of traditional religions, it's not that people have become less religious, it's that they've replaced it with secular religions, i.e. Democrat and Republican have become religions, and therefore they become religions. Each one is an idea. Nobody talks to the other, because they say, I'm right, religion is an all or nothing proposition. So anyways, here's the bottom line. If you don't worry about it, don't worry about it. The Gemara in many places says the same thing, like by an ayin hara, the evil eye. If you're not worried about the evil eye, then don't worry about it. If you worry about the evil eye, then worry about it. Okay, so the point of it is, let's move on. He also Rabdimi Amar. I'm just trying to get a little further on the Yomit, and then we'll find the spot where to stop. Okay. He also Rabdimi Amar. Shtei beitzim ushtei egoizim ushtei kishuin b'davar acher halach l'moshe machine Sinai. It's an halach l'moshe machine that 2 eggs, 2 walnuts, 2 cucumbers, and 2 other food items make one susceptible to harm. The Rabbanim weren't sure what the other item was. The Rabbanim, the cool is Zogi Mishum Dabaracha. And therefore the Rabbanim said, since I don't know what the other thing is, every other thing besides eggs, walnuts, and cucumbers, we're going to go ahead and answer in twos. Because I don't know which two is the other problem, the other periods of problems, so everything becomes a problem. That others say that 10, 8, 6, 4, there's no concern about pairs. 10 because it's double digits, 8, 6, and 4 because it matches up with the Birchas Kahanim, the priestly blessings. That's only regarding viruses, call it viruses. Regarding sorcery, regarding sorcery, you got to worry. There was this guy who divorced his wife. She went and got married to a shop owner. And every day the original husband would go to the shop and drink wine. She performed sorcery on him, but it had no effect on him. Because he was careful with regard to pairs. He only drank 1 cup or 3 cups or 5 cups, but he never drank in pairs. One day he drank a lot, and he couldn't remember how much he drank. Until at 16 cups he was of clear mind and careful with himself, keeping track of what he drank. From then on, he was not of clear mind and could not be careful, and he couldn't keep track. I take Mizuga. He left the shop with having drunk a pair. He drank 18 cups or 20 cups. As he was going, a certain Arab encountered him. It is a dead man who's going here. He got sick and worried. He went and he embraced the palm tree. He was in Florida, and he embraced the palm tree. The palm tree shriveled up and he burst. Okay, if you could understand this story, Tava Alecha Bracha. Amarab Avira, and again, it's not that the story happened or didn't happen. That's not the issue here. The main issue here, if you really want to go with this story, is that no human being can say, I'm putting myself into sakana. You're not allowed to say, I'm going to put myself, so Ramosha, for an example, Ramosha Feinstein Paskin for a guy who was in college and wanted to play on the football team. Ramosha Paskin, football is a violent sport, and a Jew is not allowed to play football. That's what he said. You're not, you want to play and all that. Jews own the team. Jews don't play the game. Remember that.
You could harm yourself. That's why.
Right? So that's the truth. Baseball and basketball, but if you can harm yourself, you have a chiyuv of shmartem esnafsheitzeichem.
The same thing with boxing. You're not allowed to become a boxer.
You're not allowed to box. The truth is, there are many different things where in the halacha the Chag is very careful about. Certain jobs you're just not allowed to do. A Jew. So the same thing over here. I essentially learned this Gemara and saying, look, I don't understand about peers. We're supposed to go, don't worry about, if you don't worry about peers, it's not a problem. Nonetheless, says the Gemara before, be mindful. And that's what we're saying over here. Be mindful. Just be mindful. You could drink 1 cup. You could drink 3 cups. If you're drinking a cup, we're not supposed to drink an achilas gas. You're not supposed to drink up a whole cup in 1 gulp. But you're also not supposed to drink it with 2 gulps. Make it 3 gulps. That's all. Something like that. That's all. I guess that's the best way of looking at this. Amarav Avira Ka'arais Kikares Ein Behem Mishum Zugais. Plates of cookies and loaves of bread do not have a problem with pears. Kalala de Milsa, because this is the general rule.
Man-made.
Kol Shagami B'dei Adam, anything made by humans, Ein Behem Mishum Zugais. Gabra B'dei Shemayim, things completed by heaven, With regard to foods, chashinan, we worry. Chanus ein behem shum zugais. A shop does not bring dangers of peers. Nimlach ein behem shugais. One is drinking an odd number, and then he reconsiders and goes back to drink another cup. It's not a problem. Oirach ein behem shum zugais. A guest doesn't have a problem with peers because he doesn't know how many drinks the guy is going to bring him anyways. So each drink is mutually exclusive. Isha ein behem shum zugais. A woman is not worried about zugais. The isha chashuva chashina, but if she's a prominent woman, then you got to worry about it. Since all our women, of course, are prominent, and if you don't believe me, go ask your wives. They'll tell you they're prominent. That's the way it is. Amar Rav Huna, okay, and this is where we're going to stop right after this Rav Huna. Amar Rav Chanina, Bereder Rav Yeshua. I'm sorry, asparagus mitzaref l'tayva. Asparagus combines with other cups of drinks for good. They mitzaref l'raba does not combine with other cups for bad. Asparagus, if you squeeze the asparagus and you get out the juice and you drink from it, it's okay. You don't got a problem of asparagus because if you drink 2 cups, it's like you drink
because it's a refuah. That's why.
I guess it's a refuah. So when it comes to refuahs, now personally, that's if you like asparagus. If you gag when you eat asparagus, so my mother, Shala, used to try to feed us asparagus. It never went. Me and my sisters would not eat it. And so it never became a staple. Very good. We're up to Amar Ravina Mishmei Derava, and that's where we're going to pick it up tomorrow. Amar Ravina Mishmei Derava.